Okay, it's been a couple of days. I had to let this sit because my wife had some business down at Captiva Island for a couple of days, and I tagged along with her because, hey, it's Captiva Island. To hang out there for a couple of days, great. One thing I did while she was stuck in meetings all day, I went out exploring, and I made a video at the Edison and Ford Estates. Fascinating stuff. I'll put a link to it up in the upper right corner for anybody who's interested. Great to see Edison's old laboratory. But anyway, this is pretty much as I expected. This has just been sitting here, sort of a light blue color. It's dissolved, the nitric acid has dissolved all the metal out of the IC chip remains in the bottom of the beakers. All the turbidities had a chance to settle. It's a nice clear blue liquid. Alright, that's exactly as I expected. But let me show you what I didn't expect. I don't know what in the world I have created here. I really don't. This is very, very weird. It's turned yellow-orange. And, you know, if you watch, you know, extractions of dye or explosions of... Yellow is never a good color for chemistry. What should have happened, and what has happened with me on dozens of other occasions when I've tried to cement out silver, is you put the copper wire in, the silver cements out on the copper, falls to the bottom, the liquid gets bluer as copper goes into solution, and the silver comes out. I don't know what in the world is going on here. Now there's a layer of something down at the very bottom that could be cement silver. That first stuff I saw coming out, but it looks like a layer cake here. There's layers of stuff. So, Nick, there's something in your chips that I haven't encountered before. I don't know what it is. It's some other metal in there, I assume, that's reacting with the copper. Something above copper in the reactivity series of metals that's not silver. I don't know. Okay, so what I've got here is the two beakers with the IC chip remains in the bottom and this really nice clear blue liquid up on top. So this is nice and clear since it's been sitting for a couple of days while I left town. If I try to pour this liquid off, it'll get all turbid. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to siphon it down as low as I can before I start sucking in too much of this mud down here. And I'm going to do that on both of these and siphon that off into another beaker, and then I will filter that before I try to get the silver out of it. Although, after my experience with the first batch, I don't know if I'll get any silver. I may just set that liquid aside and then just concentrate on getting the gold out of this and worry about the silver another day. But I gotta get set up to do the siphoning. Okay, let's get this siphoning done so I can move on to getting the gold out of this stuff. So what I'm going to do here is siphon the bulk of the blue liquid off, and then I will rinse the solids left in the beaker with distilled water a couple of times at least, and see if I can get the bulk of the blue color out of it. And then we will switch to using aqua regia and see if we can dissolve some gold out of this stuff. So I'm going to do both these beakers. It's going to take a few minutes. You don't have to watch it all. This is about as exciting as it gets. Okay, starting to suck up some scum. Alright, so that's one. Going to do the other one. It'll be just like the first one. Okay, I've rinsed the contents of both beakers quite a few times until I've got the vast majority of the blue color out of it. The first few rinses have gone into this beaker here, and because that's going to be the most concentrated in hopefully silver. So I'm going to let that settle, and then I'll siphon it into this other beaker with the other stuff. But let me show you something, and I hope this is going to show up on the camera. I don't know, it might not. So I've got the two beakers here with the icy chip remains in it after leaching it out with the nitric acid. And I don't know if this is going to show up, but what I did was I swirled the beakers around with some water in them. There is quite a band of gold right there. Probably not showing up. But this other beaker, an even more prominent band of gold. Man, I hope that's showing up to some extent. There's a lot of gold in that beaker right there. Okay, so next step, get the gold out of these things. So I'm going to drain the last of this rinse water off. I'm going to put them back in the fume hood, and we're going to hit them with some aqua regia. I'm going to leave them in the two different beakers just because there's still too much material to process in one. The aqua regia has to get to the gold, and you know, if I combined them, the stuff would be that thick in the bottom of the beaker, and you know, it just wouldn't have good contact with the acid. So we'll do both of them, and in the end we'll combine them when we filter this stuff, and we'll combine the stuff we got off the oversized material, and we'll drop all the gold and see how much we get. I think we're going to get a fair amount because there's a lot of gold, especially in this beaker. I wish that would show up better. Well, it's showing up pretty good right there. Yeah, see that line of gold there? So I'm surprised. This beaker has less material in it, but seems to have more gold than this one. So I don't know. It's a crapshoot though. There could be more gold in this one than I'm seeing. So all right. This will probably be carried on tomorrow. I'm going to drain the rinse water off, put these back in the fume hood, and it's coming up on dinner time, so I'm going to shut everything down and go in and have some dinner, and we'll pick up where I left off tomorrow. Alright, it's time for the main event. Let's get the gold out of Nick's chips. So it's the next day, the stuff's still sitting here in the fume hood. Let me get the fume hood going. And in goes some uric acid. let that sit there and simmer. And once it starts warming up, we should start seeing a reaction. Alright, it's been, I don't know, 10-15 minutes. We got some pretty good bubbling going on in both beakers as it starts to warm up. My blower is sounding like it's on its way out. I have a spare. If it doesn't make it through this process, I will switch it out quick. It takes about 5 minutes. Otherwise, if it keeps running, I'll just wait until it's done. Well, it's been maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes. I've got some pretty significant fume production, a lot of bubbling going on in both beakers. So that tells me the gold is going into solution. And in the time between when I started this and now, I replaced the blower on the fume hood. Just because it was really rattling bad. It was definitely on its last legs. So fortunately, that's about a 5-minute job these days. I have videos on how I built this fume hood and how I've updated it, and that the blower is a consumable item. I'll put a link in the upper right hand corner. You can check that out if you like. Anyway, we're just gonna let this sit and cook until I don't see any more activity. Well, it's been, I don't know, maybe an hour, hour and a half, and the reaction slowed down a lot, especially in this beaker. I know one of these two had a lot more gold in it than the other. It was probably this one, since this one still produced a lot of fumes. But I'm going to give both a stir, just to make sure that the acid has good contact with the gold and nothing stagnating down there. And I will probably stir them 1 or 2 more times before I call it done. Just to make sure all of the gold has a chance to go into solution. And gonna let it cook some more. Okay, while we're waiting for the gold to dissolve in the fume hood, I am going to filter this liquid here, which hopefully I can extract some silver from without a lot of drama this time. We'll see. I don't know. Not going to get my hopes up too high, but, you know, gotta give it the old college try. So this is the stuff I siphoned off of the 2 beakers. There's still a fair amount of crap in the bottom of it that needs to be filtered out. And then this is the first few rinses that I did with distilled water on the IC chip remains. So these have both been tested. They both show positive for silver. In other words, it reacts with tap water to form a white cloud. So after I get it filtered, I'm going to put it back in this tall beaker, and I'm going to put this coil of copper wire in it, and we'll see what we can cement out. Hopefully it won't turn all orange and nasty like last time. So it's going to take me a little while to filter all this. You don't have to watch every minute of it. Be back when it's done. Okay, that's all of it I can get through here. This beaker only has a 2,000 milliliter capacity, so I got all of the siphoned off liquid, which would be the richest in silver, in theory, in here, and as much of the secondary rinse water as I could. So put this back in here. I have cleaned this beaker. It's the pretty blue color of copper nitrate in solution. Silver nitrate is colorless in solution, and I know it's there. The question is, what else is in there that might screw me up? We'll find out. Gonna drop this coil in here, and we shall just wait and see what happens. So far, not much. It was an almost immediate reaction before, so I'll just let it sit and see what happens. Well, it's been maybe 20-25 minutes. I moved this beaker into my workshop onto a bench where it won't get jiggled constantly by my working out at the chemistry bench. Stuff is starting to build up on the coil in there, but there's a lot of bubbling going on too. I think there's probably a little bit more residual nitric acid in there than I like. I think there needs to be a little bit to get the reaction started, but there may be a bit more than I really like. But it will react with the copper over time, and the strength of the acid will diminish. I think what might be happening actually is we're getting silver coming out on the copper coil, but it's breaking away and dissolving back into the liquid because there's so much free nitric acid in there. Eventually, as the amount of nitric acid in there drops off, that reaction will stop, and I think we'll just see it start cementing out on the copper and staying. That's what I'm hoping. So we'll just let this sit, you know, even if it takes a few days, I don't care. We'll just let it sit, see what happens. Okay, I think the reaction's about done in both beakers. It's really slowed down in this one, and there's hardly any brown fumes left in it. The bubbling has slowed down a lot. This one really looks like it's been done for a while. But I think I'm going to do, since it's getting on into afternoon, I think I'm just going to let these sit on low heat all afternoon and overnight, just to make sure any little bits of gold down in there get a chance to get in contact with the acid and get dissolved. I'm actually going to stir them a few times too. And then tomorrow we'll go after the gold. We'll decant off the liquid, we'll filter the liquid out of the solids, and we'll drop the gold. But I think I'm just going to let them sit overnight. I do that a lot. It's just a good way to make sure you leach all the gold out of that gunk in the bottom of the beakers, especially with the stirring too. Okay, so we'll just leave it till tomorrow. See you then. Well, it's been a little while longer, maybe another 20 minutes, and I'll tell you what, this stuff, especially towards the bottom, is starting to look a whole lot more like cement silver. I mean, there's still a lot of bubbling going on, so there's probably still a lot of excess nitric in there, but yeah, you see that stuff's bubbling right up. It's reacting with the nitric acid, so there's probably still a lot of excess nitric in there, but it looks like as it gets used up, we do have some silver coming out of solution on the coils. So this is looking like might actually get some silver this time. Gonna let it go and see what happens over the next day or so. Alright, it's the next day, and there's finally something that seems to be going right about the silver recovery. There's still some bubbling going on in here, so there's still, it looks like a little bit of excess nitric acid in there, but look at all of the silver that's accumulated on the bottom of this beaker so far. And there's, you know, stalactites of it hanging on the coil. And I think just as time goes on and what little bit of nitric acid is still here in this beaker gets used up, the rest of the silver the rest of the silver will come out of solution. So something's actually going right with silver recovery. Okay. I still don't know what to do with this stuff over here, which is the liquid from the first attempt at silver recovery. Plus I've added what was left over of the rinse water to it. There is silver in it. I may try recovering it in the future. Just gonna let it sit for now because I got other things to do. Mainly, I got a couple of beakers over here in the fume hood that I need to get the gold out of. They've sat overnight. The Aqua Regia has done its thing, and it's time to get the gold out of these. I'm going to have to denox them. I'm sure I used a little bit of extra nitric acid. In fact, I put about a milliliter extra in both of them and stirred them up before I left them for the night, just to make sure that all the gold in there went into solution. So this is a case where I want to actually have a little bit of extra nitric acid in solution. That's just gonna, you know, if there's extra nitric here, that's just going to tell me that yes, I have got all of the gold in solution. If all of the nitric's used up, I won't know if all the gold's in solution or not. So I'm going to mix up some sulfamic acid, a saturated solution of sulfamic acid, and we'll dump it in there and neutralize any residual nitric acid. Plus we'll get a bonus of the sulfamic acid will turn into sulfuric acid, and any lead that's in these will come out of solution as lead sulfate. So let me get started on making the sulfamic acid solution. Okay, I've got my saturated solution of sulfamic acid ready. You could use urea too. I know a lot of people do. I don't, and I have in the past. I don't like to, but the problem with urea is, number one, you can create urea nitrate, which is a high explosive. You're probably not going to create enough of it to be a problem, but it can accumulate in places like in your stock pot and other places until it becomes maybe a problem. Another problem is urea doesn't actually destroy the nitrate ion. It just binds with it. So the nitrate's still in there. Sulfamic acid will destroy the nitrate ion. Now, I put a few grains of sulfamic acid in these, and I got some fizzing, so I know that there's some excess nitrate, so that tells me all the gold should be in solution. Otherwise, all the nitric acid would have been used up. So I'm going to put about equal amounts in both of these, carefully, because I don't want to have a boil over. Slowly and carefully. And I think I'm going to mix up a little bit more because I'm not sure that did the trick. I also need to denox this stuff back here from the oversized fraction. So I need to denox that too, because I'm going to mix that with one of these two beakers. And then I'm going to add some ice to both beakers to chill and dilute this stuff, and then we'll filter. And then we'll be ready to drop the gold. I'm going to mix up some more saturated sulfamic acid solution and treat these three beakers. Just make sure I've totally denoxed them, stir them up good, make sure that it gets down into the mud down there. Then I'll add the ice. Alright, before I go and get the ice, just in case anybody has any doubts, there is gold in solution. We're going to do a stannous chloride test. I got some fresh stannous chloride solution over here. Got a spoon. I'm going to I'm going to pipette a little bit out of here. And we'll put some stannous chloride solution on it. And there we go. That's a pretty good indication right there. It's pretty strong. We've got gold in solution. Alright. So let me get this stuff iced down. And then once the ice melts, we'll be ready to filter. And then drop the gold. Okay, I got some ice. And but first, I've got the liquid and solids that came off of the oversized fraction. I'm just going to sort of arbitrarily pour it into this beaker here. Actually, maybe not all that arbitrary, because I think this beaker had less visible gold in it, so we'll add this fraction to it. Now maybe we'll have roughly the same amount of gold in both beakers. And we'll let that cool down. And then we shall filter. Okay, the ice has just about all melted. And before I do any filtration, I need to kind of equalize the amount of liquid between the two beakers, because there's just too much in this one. My filter flask is only a 2-liter capacity, and with rinse water, you know, we're going to go way over that real quick. So if I could carefully dump some of this in here, give myself a little bit of breathing room. That looks closer, a little bit more maybe. Okay, we'll call that close enough to even. Now it's time to filter. Alright, you've seen me do this before. I gotta be careful here, because these beakers are cold now, and they are slick with condensation. I don't want to drop one. Spill the gold from Nick's chips all over the ground. I have to say, the liquid is a pretty nice color. It's mostly yellow, which is good. I guess I must have got the bulk of the copper and other stuff out of it. Not green. We might have a reasonably clean gold drop. So this is going to take a little bit. I'll jump forward and show you once I get all the liquid in, because I don't want to clog the filter with the solids right off. Once I get all the liquid in, I'll dump the solids in last and rinse them until I see no more yellow color coming out of it. So I'll jump ahead to where the solids need to go in. Okay, I got pretty much all the liquid through. So now it's time for the solids. Wash them in. Sort of try to distribute them as evenly as possible over the bottom of the filter. Not easy to do, actually. It wants to mound up like a sandcastle. Okay. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of redistribute it so it's sort of like a flat layer in here pretty much, so I can get even leaching of it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wet it down thoroughly with distilled water and let the vacuum pull the liquid through it. Also washing the color out of the filter as I'm doing this. And we're just going to rinse it until I get no more color. In fact, the general rule of thumb here is rinse it until you think you're done, then rinse it some more, just to be sure. It's not going to hurt. It's going to dilute the liquid a little bit, but that seems to help get the gold out of solution better if it's a little more dilute. So this is going to take a little while. So you don't have to watch it all. This video is already getting really long. Be back when we're done. Okay, I have rinsed it, I believe, sufficiently. I'm just going to wait until the last of the liquid is pulled through by the vacuum and the dripping stops. We'll have reasonably dry material up in the top of the funnel there. It's a good color. It's crystal clear. There's no silver chloride in it. There doesn't look like there's a lot of copper or anything else that's polluting it. So looks like we got all those base metals out in the nitric acid leach. Excellent. So what I'm going to do is I cleaned the beaker that this came out of, so it's nice and clean, and once the dripping stops, I'm going to pour it back into this beaker. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the other beaker in the fume hood. Exact same thing. You don't have to watch that. Replay this part if you want to see it again. Then I'll have two beakers full of lovely liquid ready to drop the gold out of. So I don't know how well this is showing up, but I've just finished filtering the second beaker of liquid, and down in the bottom of my filter flask there's some gold that's come out of solution. It's collected there. I'm trying to wash it into this beaker so it can be part of this gold drop here. It's stubborn, doesn't want to come out. There we go. I really blast it with the water bottle. So it's good, in my opinion. When the gold's trying hard to come out of solution before you even put any SMB in it, I'm hoping that means we're going to have an uncomplicated gold drop. Okay, filtration done. Got two beakers ready to have the gold dropped out of them. Got a bucket full of basically sand. It actually looks like beach sand. And the filters I used in the Buckner funnel. Now, I have tried doing a second leach on this stuff and haven't got more than a trace of gold out. And decided it wasn't worth my time, effort, and chemicals to do that anymore. So I just try and get as much out as I can on the first leach. That's why I left it sit overnight with an excess of nitric acid in the beakers, just to make sure all the gold was going to dissolve. I'm sure there's a little bit of a trace of it that didn't quite come out. This isn't perfectly dry, but it is awfully darn dry. The vacuum filter does a good job of drying it out, pulling the liquid out of it. So I'm going to discard this. Like I said, it's basically sand. I'm going to use it to fill in a low spot in the driveway. I will keep the filters. I will throw them in with my gold filter collection, and someday I will process all my gold filters and get a little bit of gold out of them. So that's what's going to happen with that. What's going to happen with this stuff is we're going to drop the gold out. So get my SMB here. I'm going to use Stump Out as per usual. It's pretty cheap. Readily available. Bone-Eat Stump Out. Other brands of stump remover use different chemicals, but Bone-Eat Stump Out uses SMB, which sodium metabisulfite, which is exactly what we need for this. We'll get the fume hood going because it's going to make some nasty sulfur dioxide gas, which I don't want to breathe. Oh, love that new blower. It's so quiet. Okay. Frame. Here we go with the first now we're getting some foam. You just start seeing foam. That usually means you've got about enough in there, so we'll cover that up. Do this one. See how the one on the left is darkening? A little bit more. Let's see if that's enough for the one on the right. But the one on the left, we're definitely got the color change going on. If we don't get a color change in the one on the right in a reasonable amount of time, I'll add some more SMD to it. Yep. Gold's precipitating out on the one on the left. To my eye, the one on the right looks like it's gotten a little darker. Yeah, I think it's starting to change color too. Yep. Definitely get darker. Okay. Just gonna leave these sit, maybe even overnight, and see how much gold accumulates in the bottom of these beakers. Well, here we are the next day, and the gold has all settled out onto the bottom. Pretty good layer of gold in both beakers on the bottom. Hard to tell how much in this state. Could be a lot, could be not much at all. There's a nice green tint to both of them, so there still was some copper in there, although it wasn't really obvious before dropping the gold out. It looked like it was pretty good in yellow. Maybe a slight green tint to it, but it looked like it was mostly yellow. So, didn't get as clean a gold drop as I'd like. It's just not bad. I mean, it's kind of brown colored. It mostly sank to the bottom. So, you know, it's not as bad as some dirty gold drops I've had where it's like ultra-fine black stuff that doesn't want to sink out of the water column, but it's not all that great and clean either. This beaker over here has a lot of floating gold in it. I've tried knocking it down with spray, distilled water spray, but it's not all sinking, so I think there's globs of gold powder with air bubbles in the middle of them. What I am going to do with this stuff now is I'm going to siphon off the bulk of the liquid until I get down to just sort of the dregs at the bottom with the gold. I'm going to have to be careful with this one because it's got gold floating on top as well as gold in the bottom. I'll have to siphon from the middle of the water column. And once I get down to where I've got rid of most of the liquid, I'm just going to run this stuff through a filter and collect all the gold on a filter, and then we'll process it one more time and try and make it into good clean gold, and then we'll dry it up, weigh it up, and see how much we got. So let me get set up for siphoning. Alrighty, let's get this siphoning done. I'm going to have to siphon the liquid into this container here because it's the only one I've got that can hold a little over 2 liters of liquid. A lot of liquid here. But I'm not going to siphon it all in. I'm just going to get down close to the layer of gold there. I don't want to suck any of it up. Then there'll be a manageable amount of liquid left in the beaker. I can just run it through a filter. Capture the gold on a filter. There we go. That's close enough. There's right around 200 milliliters of liquid left. I don't want to go any lower and risk sucking up any of the gold. So, just going to repeat that with the other one. Okay, I got most of the liquid siphoned off both beakers. I left a little more in this one because this one has the troublesome floaty gold in it. I swirled the beakers around so most of the gold collected in a pile in the middle. This one obviously has a fair amount more gold in it than this one. I'd have been surprised if they had exactly the same amount. One of the two beakers seemed to have a lot more visible gold in the bottom of it before I put the aqua regia on it. So I'm going to have to get set up for filtration so I can capture the gold. And this stuff back here going to go in my stock pot. Alrighty, let's get this gold into a filter so we can further process it. Get it away from the rest of that nasty green liquid there. Yeah, for first precipitation out of solution from my heat chip, it doesn't look too bad. But there's room for improvement. Really amazingly difficult to tell how much gold there is here. See a lot of gold, see a lot of trouble for not much gold. Have to wait and see. I'm going to rinse the gold a little bit gently and see if I can get as much of the metal out of it as I can, the metal salt. My spray bottle's not working too good today. Pretty good. So then I'll put this filter in a smaller beaker, hit it with some aqua regia, redissolve it, and we should get some reasonably clean gold out of it. Now that all the green stuff's down here. Okay. There we go. There's the gold. have to say it's not looking like all that much in this form, but you know, it's really hard to tell. A little bit on my finger. Get that in there. Geez, I may have to put these gloves with my filters and process them someday. Alright, so got the filter in here, and I put this in the fume hood, and we'll make aqua regia again. Okay, we're back in the fume hood. Let me get the blower going. And see, smart, I've already turned on the hot plate to low. Some muriatic acid in there. 300 milliliters ought to be more than enough, even with a filter in there, I'm thinking. Okay, I am going to put that's 2 milliliters. And that's one more to make 3 milliliters. So I put 3 milliliters of nitric acid in there. And if it needs more, I will add more. But this is a case where I really don't want to over nitric it. So we'll just let it sit. I'll keep an eye on it. If there still looks like gold in the bottom, I'll put a few more drops of nitric acid in, and I'll keep that up until the gold all disappears. So I don't want to end up with a whole lot of extra nitric in this. Well, it's been, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes. Liquid's starting to warm up. It's turned orange. There's some bubbling going on in there. I don't know if the bubbling's showing up or not. Pretty small bubbles coming up off the gold on the filter. But it's starting to dissolve. So this may take a little while. Well, I swirled it around a little bit. You can see the paper filter starting to break up. There's still a small pile of gold in the center of the beaker after the swirling. I'm not going to add any more nitric acid to it yet because there's still some good bubbling and fuming going on. So I may have put in enough to get that gold dissolved. We'll see. Just let it continue to cook. Well, it's been maybe an hour or so. The reaction has pretty much died down to nothing in there. Swirled it around, don't see any more gold on the bottom of the beaker. I'm going to take it off the heat. And I've got my usual saturated solution of sulfamic acid here I'm going to use to denox it. I suspect there's a little bit of extra nitric acid in there because all the gold went into solution. Oh yeah, look at that. Sorry. Yeah, we got some bubbling, so it tells me there was extra nitric acid in there. Okay, I'm calling that denoxed. Yeah. A few grains of sulfamic acid left in here. Let me see if I can wash them in. Out of the beaker. Okay. Now, next step, just like before, ice. Cool it down. And once the ice melts, we'll be ready to filter it and drop the gold out again. And we should get a pretty good clean gold drop this time. Okay, let's filter the paper pulp and anything in here that didn't dissolve out of it. The ice is all melted, it's all diluted, it's all denoxed. Get it filtered and get the gold dropped. looked like a good color last time, but this really is a good color. This is like pure yellow. No green, no blue contaminating it. Very clear. I mean, even here it's clear except for the paper pulp. That's everything. I just got to wash the color out of the filter. Clean out this beaker. Dump this back in and we'll drop the gold. We should have a good clean gold drop this time. And be able to get a weight on the gold. Alright, slight change of plans. I put the liquid into a bigger beaker because I'm going to do something a little different this time. I do get grief from time to time in the comments section on my videos about just spooning powdered SMB in there. I don't know why people have a problem with that. It works, okay? They say you should dissolve it in water first. Well, yeah, but just spooning it in works too, and you don't have to go to the trouble of actually mixing it up in water. So I've got a saturated solution of SMB in water here. See, another problem with doing it this way is I needed to put it into a bigger beaker. Plus, if I don't use all this stuff up, what am I going to do with the leftover? So, but it does work, so we'll do it this way. Hopefully I put enough SMB in there. Well, the color's fading. That's a good sign. Yeah, it's pretty much faded to clear. So next, it should darken. Everything goes to plan. See how long that takes. Oh, it's darkening a little. Oh yeah. There we go. Yep, I guess I must have mixed up enough. Good. So you can do it either way. You can put the powder in like I normally do, or you can mix it up in liquid first and put it in. Either way is fine. It all works. So, like before, we're going to let this sit. Let everything come out of solution and settle to the bottom, and we'll see what we got. Okay, now that the gold is in the midst of its hopefully final drop in there, we can go back to the silver odyssey here. This stuff, it had a strong indication of silver when I first put it in this gallon jug. Been sitting here a few days. Now when I test it, it shows hardly anything. Just a trace of cloudiness, if anything. And there's a white precipitate on the bottom of the jug. I got a feeling that's the silver that was in solution. There shouldn't be any chlorine in there, so I don't know what that white precipitate is. But whatever it is, it took the silver out of solution. And I didn't think about doing this before. Maybe I should have. I thought, well, I've got some stannous chloride sitting around. Let me do a stannous chloride test on this. So this is what I get. I'm not quite sure what to make of it. The color's really not showing up very well on the video. It's actually kind of a brown green in the center, the lighter green around the edge. You know, and the liquid goes in sort of a bright blue, so there is some sort of reaction going on. I don't know, palladium, maybe there's some palladium in there, I don't know. But I don't think I'm going to get any more silver out of it. Not out of this stuff anyway. I think the only silver I'm going to get is going to be what's in this beaker up here. And there's a fair amount on the bottom of the beaker, not really showing up. So maybe tomorrow I'll deal with getting this accumulated silver out of this beaker, and we'll deal with the gold that's precipitating in this beaker. And then maybe we'll call this project done. We'll see. Alright, it's the next morning, and look at that. Nice clean gold drop. Colorless liquid left behind in the beaker. That's great. That's just what I like to see. That's a really good clean gold drop. That's going to be good clean gold in there. So I'm going to do the same thing I've done before many times, so you don't have to see it, because this video is getting really long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to siphon off the bulk of the liquid, and then I'm going to put this on to boil with some distilled water, just to try and get any nastiness out of the gold that's still remaining there, and to try and get it to clump together, agglomerate together a little better, so that we can dry it out later and get a weight on it. And by the way, I'm going to do pretty much the same thing with the silver in here. I'm going to siphon off the bulk of the liquid and give it a boil in some distilled water, and then dry it out and get a weight on it. So you don't need to see me do more siphoning. I've siphoned enough in this video already. I'll be back when that's done. Okay, we got the gold on the left and the silver on the right. I've transferred them both to smaller beakers. The gold's already come up to a boil. It's boiling in distilled water to clean it up a little bit. The silver hasn't quite come up to a boil yet. Gonna let them boil a little while, change out the water, probably boil them again, then dry them out and weigh them up. Let's see what we got. Okay, we got the gold drying out over here, the silver drying out over here, just on warm hot plates after pouring off the bulk of the water. So we'll let them dry out until we got a nice dry powder, and we'll go from there. Okay, I got the gold from Nick's chips over here. It's all dried out. I have to say, it's not a hugely impressive pile for the amount of time and effort that went into it. I'm beginning to see Nick's frustration. I think I know what the problem is, but let's get an actual, you know, bead here and get a weight on it before we get too deep into the weeds on this, because, you know, there may be more gold here than it looks. Sometimes I'm pleasantly surprised. Rarely, but it happens. Alright, so this is probably going to be pretty bright. The anhydrous borax, goggles, Goggles don't work over glasses worth a darn. Plug on. There we go. Well, that gold is melting quick. It's melting right down. See if I can get it all together into one big bead. Come on, consolidate. That looks pretty good. Alright. Of course, I have forgotten to get a beaker out with some water in it to cool it. My eagerness to bring this project to a conclusion, I forgot that little detail. Let's see here. Hopefully, that's actually a respectable size bead. Yeah. Okay. All right. See here, get a little light on it, get a good focus. So there's the bead of gold we got from Nick's chips. Gonna have to weigh it up, see how much it is. It's got some weight to it, I have to say. There's a few grams there. Not insubstantial. Okay. I've also got the silver over here that I got from his chips. Boy, it looked like a lot more while it was wet and fluffy, but now that it's dried out, not all that much. And silver is only about half the density of gold too, so I wouldn't be surprised if the weight of this is not too much more than that little bead there. I will get this out and weigh it up later, but first, let's weigh up this gold bead and see what we got. Okay, let's make sure that the scale's calibrated. Hit 50 grams, yep, perfect. And I'll put Nick's, 1 whole gram. I was expecting a little bit more than that. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Not as much gold as I was expecting. 0.97. Oh. 96. I guess that's where we are. The bead looks bigger and it feels bigger than 1 gram, but that's it. Yeah. Okay, Nick, I begin to feel your pain. Let's see what we did with the silver. Okay, let's see what we've got for silver. I mean, it looks like there's a lot in there, but you know, it's a pretty fluffy powder, so I'm not expecting miracles here. Well, we got more silver than gold, but about double. And I know I lost a fair amount of silver due to the something weird in the chips really screwing up my chemistry. So I know I probably lost half the silver, at least that was here. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was 4 grams to start with. And I've only got 2 grams. A little over 2 grams now. Look at that where you can see it. So I'm not going to bother melting that down. I'm just going to add it to this bottle of cement silver I'm collecting. Eventually I'll melt it all down and make some bars, but I'm just going to add it to that. But yeah, okay. Let me give you my thoughts on why we're getting so little gold out of these chips, Nick. So Nick, yeah, 1 gram of gold for all the time, effort, and chemicals. That's pretty pathetic. And I think I have some theories about what the problem is. Yeah, I had trouble collecting the silver, but I didn't really see any problems with the gold chemistry. Everything just went according to plan with the gold chemistry. I think the problem just is your particular mix of chips don't contain a whole lot of gold. And I think that's something I said up front looking at them. It was mostly dip packages, dual inline packages. And they just don't contain a whole lot of gold. They're basically, the more legs an IC chip has, is a general rule, the more gold bond wires it's going to have inside. And those dip packages just didn't have very many legs. Yeah, there were some larger ones in there. There were some 40s and maybe some 24s. Mostly they were 14, 16, 18 pin packages. And you know, there's a lot of material there in the form of metal and epoxy for 14, 16, 18 bond wires. So, you know, you sent me kilos of chips, but most of those kilos were metal and epoxy. Very little of it was actually gold. Now, if there had been more flat packs, more gold corner BGAs, there were some flat packs, and gold corner BGAs were there more in spirit than seriously represented. Then I think that the amount of gold would have been much higher. So it's just, I think just the mix of chips you're dealing with is the problem. Now, there's a couple of different ways to mitigate this. My process for getting this gold was kind of elaborate, and it could be streamlined a lot, which would mean that the cost and time and effort for getting this much gold could be a lot lower. I'm still not sure it would be break even using this particular mix of chips, but things could be done differently. Rather than dissolving that metal fraction in expensive nitric acid, could have done something with, like, leach the gold out of it with Eco Goldex or one of the other gold leaching agents out there. That might have been a lot more economical, probably quicker. I could have, you know, the weather's been crappy for the month and a half that this project has taken. I mean, for you folks, it's a couple hours of watching. But, you know, it's been a month and a half, 2 months of me working on this on and off in my spare time in just horrendous weather. I don't know if you can see behind me, but we are flooded. It has been raining like crazy, and I'm working between rainstorms. If the weather had been better, and you know, I could have got out my mini sluice and everything. I could have made a super concentrate, could have got all of the IC chip remains in one little beaker and processed it. It would have taken a lot less acid, probably less time, and would have been more economical. Still, I don't know if we broke even or not. I think it's just your feedstock. What I might do in your situation, Nick, is just cherry pick off the boards. You know, take the stuff that has high value. Take the gold fingers, take the gold corner BGAs, take the flat packs, take the chips with lots of legs. You know, maybe take the 40s. You know, I think there's some chips with even dual inline packages with more than 40 legs, like 48, 50 something. Take those maybe. And just get the high value stuff. The stuff that's really worth going after. And then sell the boards to a recycler, you know, and get some money out of them that way without going to all the time and trouble and effort of just trying to get a little bit of gold out of them. Because even trying to streamline and economize my process as much as possible, I think with the feedstock you've got, I don't think you could even break even, let alone make a profit. So, like I said, cherry pick. Save the stuff that's high value, process it, and just sell the rest of the boards to a recycler and get something out of them. I think that's probably your best bet. So, but, you know, that being said, this was an interesting project with all of its setbacks and issues with weather and whatnot. It was still an interesting, fun project, and I hope my viewers find it to be an interesting project to watch, and a lesson on, you know, the value of feedstock, and some stuff maybe it's not worth processing. I hope my viewers also learned a little bit about what can go wrong, especially with the silver recovery and the strange chemistry that went on there, which I still don't fully understand. Anyway, I hope this helps answer your questions, Nick, and helps you with your own precious metals recovery and e-waste recycling business. And I hope you viewers out there found this somewhat interesting, educational, informative. Killed a couple hours during COVID lockdown. Anyway, hey, give it a thumbs up for that, okay? And subscribe to see future videos. Got more coming out shortly. Got some other projects that have been on the back burner while I've been working on this, so they'll be coming out soon. And thanks a lot for watching. Have a good day. Bye.